Most people spend their entire lives trying to prove how smart they are. They chase recognition. They drop facts. They correct others. They walk into rooms needing to be seen as the smartest one there. But Machiavelli would shake his head because he knew something more dangerous, more effective, and far more enduring. The truly powerful pretend to be less than they are until it's too late. This isn't humility, it's strategy. Smart people who understand how the world really works don't advertise their intelligence. They conceal it, dilute it, and sometimes fake foolishness outright. Not because they lack pride, but because they understand timing, psychology, and above all, power thrives in disguise. This is Machiavelli's deception tactic, and it is lethal. Because the moment people perceive you as harmless, they let their guard down. They show their real face. They underestimate you. And that's when your strike lands. Unexpected, uncontested, devastating. Let's begin with the first principle of this tactic. Visibility is vulnerability. The more visible your intelligence, the more people prepare defenses against it. If you walk into a room radiating confidence, reciting knowledge, commanding attention, yes, some will respect you. But more importantly, everyone will begin calculating how to neutralize you. People do not admire superiority for long. They fear it, then resent it, then begin plotting against it. That's human nature, and Machiavelli knew it. That's why he wrote, "A wise man ought always to disguise his intentions." In modern terms, you don't tell them what you know. You let them show you what they don't. You stay quiet. You observe. You let them overestimate themselves. And when they finally assume you're slow, average, clueless, that's when they hand you every piece of leverage without realizing it. The appearance of weakness is a trap. A lion that roars too early scares the herd away. But the lion that sleeps in the sun, that yawns lazily, that looks too old or too slow to chase, that lion gets close enough to kill. This is the tactic. Smart people pretend to be unthreatening, distracted, out of their depth. Not to impress, to disarm. Because in the game of power, you don't want to win through effort. You want to win through underestimation. Machiavelli understood this at court. The princes and leaders who tried too hard to be impressive were eliminated early, either by jealousy or fear. But the ones who played the fool, who smiled, bowed, listened, nodded, appeared passive, they were ignored. And being ignored is the best camouflage in a world ruled by perception. Fools are trusted, geniuses are watched. Why do people open up to those they believe are beneath them? Because superiority triggers suspicion. Inferiority invites confidence. When you appear less capable, people speak more freely, reveal more mistakes, show you their ego, drop their filters, and let you in. Not because they respect you, but because they don't fear you. That's the gift. Machiavellian intelligence doesn't demand validation, it collects intel. The wise man doesn't argue to prove his intellect. He plays dumb to map the battlefield. He'll ask the obvious questions. He'll nod at lies. He'll pretend to misunderstand. And all the while, he's storing information, silently gaining advantage. And when the time comes to move, no one expects it. Because the fool was never a fool. He was just quiet in the corner, watching you prepare your own destruction. Exposing your full intellect creates obligations. The more people see your intelligence, the more they expect from you. Why didn't you warn me? Can you fix this? What's your opinion on everything? Why didn't you help me more? Why are you quiet now? The visible intellect becomes a social burden. But when you play dumb, you free yourself. You're not expected to lead. You're not expected to save. You're not expected to perform. You can vanish, watch, plan, all while everyone else exhausts themselves trying to look smart. And when you do speak, your words carry gravity because the rare voice is heard more clearly than the loud one. This is why Machiavelli favored selective brilliance. Let them see glimpses. Let them wonder. Let them think you're not as sharp as they thought. Perfect. Now they won't be ready when the knife lands. Enemies multiply where intellect is announced. Every room has at least one insecure mind. Someone who sees intelligence not as a quality, but as a threat to their ego. The moment you speak too clearly, too sharply, too precisely, you'll trigger their need to bring you down. And they won't do it directly. They'll do it by undermining your image, discrediting your insights, creating false narratives about your motives, and turning others against you. Why? Because truth, when it shines too brightly, exposes every illusion they've built about themselves. So what do? You dull your shine. You dim your power on the surface, and underneath, you sharpen the blade. Machiavelli understood this better than any man alive. Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. You must be the deceiver, even if you're the most brilliant man in the room. Timing is power, and premature brilliance is weakness. The smart man doesn't just know what to say, he knows when to say it. Fools blurt out their thoughts to look superior. Strategists wait until their words have maximum impact. You don't correct someone in front of an audience. You let them speak, let them rise, let them commit fully. Then, at the right moment, you drop the truth that cuts the floor from under them. One sentence, one fact, one move, and the entire room reorients itself around you. But that can only happen if you've spent the time building doubt. You let them think you were naive, that you missed something, that you weren't a threat. And in that illusion, they drop their sword. They walk exposed. That's when you strike. And you don't just win, you dismantle them, publicly, permanently, without ever having raised your voice. Because that's what Machiavelli's deception tactic is about. Let the world think you're behind, until you reveal you were always in control. Not to be loved, not to be praised, but to rule, in silence, in disguise, and without contest. A fool is not always foolish, and a genius who is always seen as one? That's not genius, that's vanity. Machiavelli's genius was cold, quiet, and camouflaged. He didn't reveal himself until the moment he could not be stopped. And this is the essence of his deception tactic. Let them believe they're winning. Let them believe they're better. Let them believe you're not even playing the same game until it's too late. This isn't just about surviving power games, it's about dominating them invisibly. Let's now explore the deeper levels of this psychological strategy and how truly intelligent people use the illusion of stupidity to control outcomes, protect their position, and ascend beyond suspicion. Let others teach you their weaknesses. The dumbest thing you can do is show people you already know, because when you do, they stop talking. The moment you flex your intellect, they retreat into silence, defense, or lies. But if you act curious, if you pretend you're missing something, they start to over-explain. They start filling in blanks you never asked for. They reveal processes. They talk too much. They correct you even when you're right. And in doing so, they show you where they're insecure, what they're hiding, what they truly care about, and what they fear being exposed. A fool gets nothing from a conversation. A smart man pretending to be a fool collects blueprints. Play dumb in the right direction. The mistake most people make when pretending to be foolish is they try to act generally stupid. That's not effective. It's obvious. It's performative. What Machiavellian intelligence does instead is strategic ignorance. You act blind only in the direction where it serves you. You let others believe you don't notice their envy. You pretend not to understand their backhanded compliments. You ignore subtle power plays, just long enough to let them overcommit. You don't react immediately. You store the data. You give them rope. And they think they fooled you. They think they're smarter. They feel superior. That's the setup. Because you're not faking stupidity to gain pity. You're faking blindness to create traps. And when it's time to act, when you respond to that one subtle move from months ago, they won't even realize they handed you the dagger. Let them underestimate you publicly. Here's where it gets brutal. There's power in private intelligence. But the most deliciously Machiavellian move is letting the world watch as someone underestimates you, and then letting them destroy themselves in front of an audience. You don't fight for your name. You don't rush to prove your knowledge. You don't interrupt their arrogance. You let it play out. You let them position themselves above you. You let them speak for too long. You let them make claims they can't back. And when they're fully exposed, when the weight of their confidence has no foundation, then you strike. One move, one sentence, one undeniable correction that rewrites the entire narrative. Now they don't just lose, they lose face. They lose credibility. They lose in the very arena they tried to dominate you in. And you don't gloat. You don't say, "I told you so." You return to your silence. Let others draw their own conclusions. That's real power. Unfought, unannounced, undeniable. Foolishness is protection in political environments. In every power circle, Be it business, government, or social hierarchies, there's a target on the back of the sharpest man in the room. Not because he's wrong, but because people fear being revealed. And sharpness reveals. That's why the real strategists act muted. They dull their edges. They smile more. They offer the occasional mistake. They laugh at themselves. Because the moment you appear harmless, you become immune to sabotage. You're not a threat. You're not an opponent. You're a mascot. And while others are tearing each other down, competing for visibility and recognition, you're in the back, watching, positioning, plotting. Fools get overlooked. The sharp, visible man gets assassinated. But the clever fool becomes the shadow king. The ego of others becomes your weapon. Every arrogant man wants to feel smarter than someone else. That's his weakness, his addiction. So give him what he wants. You ask him questions you already know the answer to. You let him monologue. You act impressed. You stroke the part of him that needs to be superior. And in return, he forgets to protect himself. He tells you secrets. He gives you leverage. He hands you everything because he thinks you're beneath him. Machiavelli would say, "You don't win by beating a proud man. You win by letting him expose himself in front of you because he never saw you as a rival." Fools get manipulated. The invisible wise become the manipulators. Say less than necessary, even when you're right. Most intelligent people destroy themselves by speaking too much. They try to prove their knowledge. They correct others. They offer unsolicited insight. And they think this makes them look smart. But in reality, every extra word chips away at their authority. Because the more you say, the more people can question. The more you explain, the more they can challenge. The more you speak, the more you reveal your need to be seen. Machiavelli's tactic is to say less than expected, especially when you know more than anyone. Let others fill in the blanks. Let others assume what you're capable of. Let others try to guess what you're thinking. Because uncertainty is more powerful than clarity when you're trying to maintain leverage. When you speak little but act decisively, people don't just respect you. They fear what they don't understand about you. And that fear is better than admiration. It keeps you untouchable. The real Machiavellian doesn't pretend to be dumb for fun. He does it because the illusion of weakness is the most advanced form of control. And the moment you master this, you stop playing the game of intellect for applause. You start playing it for power. Quiet, controlled, unpredictable. Because in the end, the smartest man is not the one who says the most. It's the one who knows everything, says nothing, and still controls the entire room. The illusion of incompetence is more powerful than a display of skill when your goal is not admiration, but control. Machiavelli didn't want applause. He wanted obedience. And to achieve that, he often taught that the most effective path to dominance is to let others believe they're smarter than you, so they never feel the need to resist you. That's the genius behind pretending to be foolish. It doesn't just protect you. It feeds your enemy's ego until they destroy themselves trying to outdo a threat that doesn't exist. Let's go deeper into how smart people dismantle resistance and seize control by using their intellect not as a sword, but as a mirror, reflecting foolishness back onto the people who think they're winning. Foolishness draws confession. Intelligence draws resistance. When you walk into a room and show intelligence, people instinctively guard themselves. They speak carefully. They posture. They lie. But when you appear slightly clueless, not entirely stupid, just a little off, people open up. They tell you secrets. They overshare. They drop their mask because they assume you're no threat to their image. This is why smart people ask naive questions. It's why Machiavellians never challenge a person's story directly. They just nod and let silence pull the rest out. Because when a person believes you don't understand, they feel safe correcting you. And when they feel safe, they speak. And when they speak too much, they reveal everything you need to win. People don't defend against what they pity. No one prepares defenses against the village idiot. If you're competent, people guard their knowledge. If you're brilliant, they try to destroy you. But if you seem confused or average or distracted, they leave you alone. Or better yet, they try to help you. And that's where the game flips. Because when people pity you, they show you their full hand. They give you advice you didn't ask for. They underestimate your awareness. They treat you like a student, even when you're 3 moves ahead. This isn't manipulation for the sake of ego. This is positioning. Because the less you are perceived as a rival, the easier it is to walk directly into a place of power, uncontested. And once you're there, you drop the act and take what no one protected. Pretending to be slow lets others speed into mistakes. Smart people often feel the urge to move fast, to correct, to lead, to warn. But Machiavelli would advise the opposite. Don't interrupt your enemy while they are making a mistake. When you appear slow to understand, others speed up to compensate. They become overconfident, they take shortcuts, they skip explanations, they reveal plans. This is what Machiavellian operators rely on, a false sense of intellectual advantage. Let them believe you don't get it. Let them walk right into overexposure. Let them drop their guard completely in the name of superiority. And when the trap closes, they won't blame you. They'll blame themselves because they thought you were stupid. You didn't outsmart them. You simply moved slowly while they rushed to show off. Every social hierarchy is built on assumed intelligence. Most groups organize themselves around one rule. Who's the smartest here? That person becomes the leader, the one people defer to, the one others challenge. But there's a trick here. You don't have to be that person to control the group. You just have to control that person. And the way you do that is by pretending to be beneath them. You feed their ego. You applaud their insight. You let them take credit. You keep your observations private. Soon they feel secure. They begin trusting you. They start leaning on you behind the scenes. They start relying on your judgment. And then, one day, they realize they can't move without you. Because while they played king in public, you became the real decision-maker in private. That's how smart people control institutions. Not by fighting for the throne, but by becoming the advisor no one sees coming. When they see a fool, they drop their sword. Imagine walking into a room with armor and weapons. If everyone sees you as a warrior, they raise their own defenses. But if you walk in dressed like a servant, slouching, eyes dull, no confidence, no one flinches, no one prepares for war. They laugh, dismiss, ignore. And that's the point. When your enemy lowers their weapon in your presence, not because you disarmed them, but because they never thought you had a weapon at all, that's when you win without ever fighting. Machiavellian tacticians understand this. Perception is armor, and foolishness is the blade that sneaks beneath it. The best lies contain pieces of truth, so do the best disguises. Pretending to be foolish doesn't mean acting like a clown. That draws attention. The most believable disguise is one that contains real flaws. Flaws you've strategically chosen to highlight. You might speak too slowly, intentionally. Misunderstand a detail selectively. Show confusion in areas you don't care about deliberately. And people believe it because it feels real. That's the brilliance. Your deception has grain. It has texture. It doesn't look like an act because parts of it are authentic, but they've been chosen, not exposed. That's how real Machiavellian operators work. They let the world see a cracked wall, while behind it is a fortress of calculation. Delay your power until they can't stop it. If you show your intelligence too early, others organize against it. If you show it too late, you miss your opportunity. But if you reveal your capability right after your influence has already taken root, when you've already gathered allies, insights, and quiet control, then the reaction doesn't matter. They can't undo what's already happened. This is the final layer of pretending to be foolish. Timing the reveal. You stay silent while your power grows. You smile while your plans unfold. You pretend not to notice while the doors unlock themselves. And when you finally speak, everyone hears it differently, because they thought they were dealing with a fool. But what they were dealing with was something far more dangerous. A man who knew exactly what he was doing and chose not to show it until it was far too late. A man who knows his power and hides it? That man is terrifying. Not because he's loud, not because he shows teeth, but because you never see the danger coming until you're already in his grasp. This is what Machiavelli understood. The most effective manipulation isn't aggressive, it's passive. It's letting your opponent walk right into their own downfall, thinking they're the one in control. And that's why pretending to be foolish isn't weakness, it's lethal patience. Now we arrive at the final layer of this strategy, the stage where illusion becomes dominance, where the world still thinks you're playing checkers while you've already checkmated them in chess. Let's break down the final psychological rules that make this deception tactic not only dangerous, but unstoppable. The moment they think you're harmless, you own the battlefield. The goal of this entire act, the slow questions, the pretend ignorance, The underestimated mind is to become invisible in plain sight. You walk among kings as if you're a pawn. You sit at the table, overlooked, but you see everything. And no one prepares for a fight against someone they pity. That's your window. Because the war for power isn't fought with fists, it's fought with perception. And the moment their perception of you is small, you can move freely while they stand still. And when it's time to act, they can't defend themselves because they never thought you were even in the game. They reveal their deepest fears to the man they don't fear. People do not confess to their equals. They confess to their inferiors, to those they think won't understand, to those they think can't use it against them. And that's where the Machiavellian fool becomes the most dangerous man in the room. Because when people don't respect your mind, they speak openly, slip up, forget you're listening, and reveal their insecurities, weaknesses, and fears. And every word they think is harmless, you collect like gold. So when the moment arrives, you don't attack blindly. You press exactly where it hurts. Not with force, with precision. They thought you were stupid. And now they're bleeding in silence, never knowing how you knew. Power is not in the display. Power is in the restraint. The greatest mistake a smart person can make is trying to prove it. Proving intelligence is insecurity wearing a crown. But restraining your intellect? That's where fear is born. When you know you're right and you say nothing. When you know the next 5 moves and you make none. When you smile while others talk because you already know the ending. That's when people begin to wonder. That's when they lean forward. That's when you shift from average to mysterious. And mystery creates power. Because when people don't know what you're capable of, they imagine everything. And what they imagine is always more terrifying than what you could say. Those who fake brilliance are the easiest to break. There's a reason so many people advertise intelligence. They have nothing else. The louder the genius, the more fragile the man behind it. But when you say little, when you downplay yourself, when you seem disinterested in recognition, people assume you're irrelevant until they try to fight you. And then they realize you were never absent. You were coiled, like a spring, quiet, still, waiting. And when you move, there's no resistance because no one was braced for impact. Never reveal your depth unless it's the final move. This is the golden rule of Machiavellian deception. Do not show them what you are until they can do nothing about it. Everything you've gathered, all the insights, the observations, the data, the leverage, it remains sealed until it's time to close the door. And when that time comes, you don't make a speech, you make a move. And that move is so exact, so unanswerable, so devastating, that they look back and realize you were always 10 steps ahead. But now, it's too late. They've already handed you the keys. They've already exposed their soft spots. They've already buried themselves in arrogance. And all because they thought you were a fool. This tactic is not for the insecure. Pretending to be foolish when you're not requires supreme self-control. You must be willing to be underestimated, to be mocked, to be ignored, to be called slow, average, boring, and be dismissed again and again, and smile through all of it. Because your ego isn't hungry for validation. It's hungry for power. And power does not reward the man who demands to be seen. Power rewards the man who can sit in silence for months, letting others speak, boast, and expose, until the time comes when one move can collapse them all. And when that moment comes, the fool smiles, the room goes silent, and the world realizes he was never the fool. He was the executioner, wearing a mask, waiting to remove it, and when he does, no one is left standing.